big change at the southern border today. Federal officials are temporarily closing down one border crossing in Arizona after a large influx of
U.S. officials have temporarily closed a remote border crossing on the Arizona-Mexico border.
What lay hidden wasn't just another smuggling tunnel or makeshift. Passageit was a sprawling underground network that defied expectations and challenged everything known about border security. Reinforced walls, concealed chambers, and branching corridors stretched farther than anyone could imagine, revealing a level of sophistication that suggested months, if not years, of planning. The implications were clear. This wasn't the work of small-time smugglers, it was something far more complex, and potentially far more dangerous. The first signs of trouble appeared as routine maintenance checks near England. At first, officials framed it as a minor infrastructure issue. But beneath the surface, layers of rock and sand concealed a labyrinth of tunnels, designed with purpose and precision. Ventilation systems, electrical wiring, and reinforced arches hinted at long-term operations, not temporary passageways. As federal and state authorities rushed to the scene, roads were blocked, drones hovered overhead, and heavy machinery was deployed to secure entry points. The discovery was described as a national security concern, not because of what had already passed through, but because of the terrifying possibilities of what could. The scale of the network meant it could easily conceal the movement of people, goods, and potentially more sinister cargo. The tunnels bypassed checkpoints, evaded aerial detection, and offered a level of discretion previously thought impossible under the watchful eyes of border patrols. Experts speculated that such infrastructure required resources, technical skill, and coordination well beyond small-time actors. The desert, long considered a natural barrier, had become a secret highway hidden in plain sight beneath patrol routes and surveillance towers. For locals, the revelation was deeply unsettling. Communities long accustomed to the rhythms of border life were suddenly confronted with a hidden reality. Abandoned buildings, dry wells, and hillsides that once seemed harmless now became potential entry points for underground passage. Inside the tunnels, the conditions were brutal. Narrow corridors, suffocating heat, and evidence of desperate travelers told stories of fear and endurance. The juxtaposition of cutting-edge engineering and human suffering highlighted the complex, often hidden dynamics at play. Economically, the closure was disruptive. Towns like Engelos and Douglas rely on cross-border trade for their livelihoods. Trucks sat idle, shipments delayed, and local businesses faced immediate strain. The shutdown was more than a security measure. It became a stark reminder of how deeply the border is woven into daily life. At the same time, political debates erupted. Critics seized the opportunity to highlight the limitations of traditional border walls and aerial surveillance. The underground threat exposed blind spots in policy, sparking discussions about investments in geospatial mapping, seismic sensors, and technological solutions to detect subterranean activity. Engineering and tactical sophistication of the tunnels left specialists in awe. Reinforced walls, air circulation systems, and electrical networks indicated deliberate, long-term planning. Some chambers appeared designed for storage, hinting at operations extending beyond Arizona and possibly involving networks in other states or even across borders. Law enforcement officials now faced a new challenge. The desert, they thought they knew, had multiple hidden layers, requiring new strategies, training, and awareness of the unseen. Every abandoned structure or uneven stretch of terrain could conceal entrances into this clandestine world below. Psychologically and culturally, the discovery reshaped perceptions of the border and the desert itself. Spaces once considered empty and familiar now carried hidden depths, blending fear, curiosity, and awe. Philosophers and religious leaders alike framed the tunnels as metaphors, hidden struggles beneath the surface, unseen forces shaping life above, and the limits of human perception. The discovery bridged ancient practices and modern ingenuity, echoing catacombs of Europe, wartime escape tunnels, and historical subterranean networks, yet scaled to a modern, strategic purpose. The event also caught global attention. Security experts in Europe, Asia, and nations with long land borders began re-evaluating their own vulnerabilities. Arizona became a case study in how localized discoveries can ripple internationally, influencing border security policies, urban planning, and intelligence strategies worldwide. The shutdown revealed fragility in both physical infrastructure and policy frameworks, highlighting how interconnected commerce, security, and daily life truly are. Beyond logistics and policy, the human impact remained profound. Families separated by the closure felt the disruption immediately. Businesses reliant on cross-border customers struggled. Schools and workplaces faced challenges, and communities experienced a psychological strain as familiar patterns of life were interrupted. The tunnels reminded everyone that beneath the routines of everyday life lie forces beyond control or comprehension. Ultimately, the Arizona shutdown was both practical and symbolic. It paused cross-border movement to secure the immediate threat while exposing systemic vulnerabilities. Above ground, the desert stretched wide and open. Below, a hidden world thrived, reshaping perceptions of national security, sovereignty, and human ingenuity. The tunnels became a reminder that threats can emerge from unseen dimensions, and that assumptions about control and safety must constantly adapt. As investigations continue, questions linger. How extensive is the network? Who orchestrated it? What else might be hidden beneath the surface of not only Arizona, but other parts of the country? Each unanswered question intensifies the mystery and underscores the importance of vigilance, innovation, and adaptability in a world where danger is not always visible. The Arizona discovery forced a nation to confront the unseen, challenging its assumptions and reshaping its understanding of what it means to guard a border. In the end, the shutdown isn't just a story of tunnels or desert engineering, it's a story about the layers beneath reality, the hidden networks shaping the world, and the constant tension between what we see and what we don't. While walls, fences, and drones watch above, the discovery beneath Arizona reminds us that vigilance must extend to every dimension, and that the most significant threats are often the ones we never imagined. A sudden shutdown at Arizona's southern border left officials scrambling and residents stunned. One remote crossing, the port of Lukeville, was closed immediately after an extraordinary discovery beneath the desert. But what they found wasn't just another tunnel or improvised. Passageit was a sprawling underground network that no one expected. Reinforced walls, concealed chambers, and twisting corridors stretched farther than anyone could imagine. The scale, the precision, the hidden complexity it suggested months, maybe years, of planning. And if this could exist under their feet, what else might be hidden from view? It all began quietly, disguised as routine inspections near England. At first, officials thought it was infrastructure maintenance, nothing unusual. Then, layers of rock and sand revealed something far more alarming. Tunnels equipped with ventilation systems, electrical wiring, and reinforced arches hinted at long-term strategic operations, not temporary passages, but a secret world beneath the desert. Drones circled, roads were barricaded, and heavy machinery moved in as officials tried to grasp the enormity of what lay hidden. What had been unseen suddenly demanded attention. The implications were chilling. This underground network could move people, goods, even weapons without detection. Checkpoints, surveillance towers, aerial patrols, they all meant nothing beneath the desert floor. Security experts suggested that this required skill, resources, and coordination far beyond what small-time smugglers could manage. The desert, long thought a natural barrier, had become a hidden highway, invisible under the very eyes of those sworn to patrol it. For residents, the discovery hit home. Abandoned buildings, dry wells, and hillsides suddenly seemed suspicious. The idea that tunnels could run beneath homes and roads left a sense of unease that spread through small communities. Inside, conditions were brutal. Suffocating heat, narrow spaces, evidence of desperate travelers. The contrast between engineering sophistication and human suffering was stark proof of ingenuity and desperation in equal measure. Economically, the border closure rippled across Arizona. Towns like Ingalos and Douglas, dependent on cross-border trade, felt it immediately. Trucks idled in the sun, shipments were delayed, and local businesses struggled. The shutdown reminded everyone that the border isn't just a line on a map, it's a lifeline for communities, commerce, and daily life. Meanwhile, politicians and critics debated the bigger picture. Traditional walls and drones couldn't prevent underground threats, and perhaps new investments in mapping and monitoring the subterranean world were overdue. Experts examining the tunnels were amazed at the tactical sophistication: reinforced walls, ventilation, electricity, and chambers for storage pointed to planning far beyond Arizona. Some speculated these networks could connect to other states or even cross international boundaries. Law enforcement had to rethink the very concept of border. Patrolling now meant scanning the ground for subtle anomalies, a big change at the southern border today. Federal officials are temporarily closing down one border crossing in Arizona after a large influx of U.S. officials have temporarily closed a remote border crossing on the Arizona-Mexico border. The port of entry at Lukeville shut down today. Border Patrol announcing the sudden decision to shut down the Arizona border came after an underground discovery that left both officials and the public stunned. Hidden beneath the desert landscape, stretching under areas long thought to be barren and remote, investigators uncovered a vast network that challenged assumptions about border security and the unseen activities taking place beneath the surface. This discovery wasn't just another smuggling tunnel or improvised passageway carved in haste. It was something far more complex, sophisticated, and disturbing, forcing authorities to seal off entire stretches of the border with unprecedented urgency. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The first reports emerged quietly, framed as routine maintenance checks on infrastructure near England. But what followed quickly spiraled into one of the most alarming finds in recent memory. Beneath layers of rock and sand lay a network that combined the ingenuity of modern engineering with the secrecy of clandestine operations. It wasn't just a single tunnel with crude supports and makeshift ventilation. Instead, it resembled an entire underground system, complete with reinforced walls, concealed chambers, and branching corridors that extended farther than anyone could have anticipated. The craftsmanship suggested extensive planning, months if not years of preparation, and access to resources that pointed well beyond the reach of small-time actors. The sheer scale of what was discovered demanded immediate action. Federal and state authorities converged on the site, halting all crossbow movement in the affected region. Roads were barricaded, surveillance drones circled overhead, and heavy equipment was rushed in to excavate and secure entry points. Officials described the network as a potential national security threat, not because of what had already passed through, but because of the implications of what it could have facilitated. The tunnels offered concealment for trafficking of goods, movement of individuals, and possibly much darker uses that had not yet come to light. The location of the find intensified the urgency. Arizona's border has long been a focal point for debates over immigration, law enforcement, and sovereignty. Its rugged terrain makes it difficult to patrol. But this discovery suggested that challenges extended far deeper, literally, than surface-level barriers or patrol routes could address. Traditional fencing and surveillance towers offered no protection against a hidden highway operating underneath. The idea that this network had existed for some time, potentially beneath the feet of agents patrolling above, was unsettling to both officials and citizens. What struck many observers was the level of concealment. Entry points were ingeniously hidden, often beneath abandoned structures, dry wells, or seemingly natural features of the desert. Some passages were even equipped with air circulation systems and electrical wiring, suggesting that they weren't just designed for temporary use, but for sustained operations. This level of investment indicated backing from groups with considerable influence and funding, not opportunistic smugglers working in isolation. The effort alone raised questions about who had orchestrated such an elaborate project and for what ultimate purpose. Security experts examining the site quickly noted the tactical advantages of such a system. It bypassed checkpoints, avoided aerial detection, and allowed for discreet transport across one of the most heavily monitored borders in the world. Beyond smuggling, the potential for use by hostile actors became a frightening possibility. The network could have been exploited to move weapons, contraband, or even individuals with malicious intent without detection. This potential shifted the discovery from a regional issue to a national concern, prompting federal agencies to intervene at the highest levels. Local residents already accustomed to the tensions of living near the border now faced a new layer of unease. For years, they had seen the visible signs of border enforcement. Fences rising against the horizon, patrol vehicles sweeping dusty roads, and helicopters tracing arcs across the sky. Now they were told that beneath their communities lay hidden corridors whose scale had gone unnoticed. Rumors swirled through small towns with residents speculating about how long the tunnels had been there and what had already moved through them before discovery. For law enforcement, the shutdown was not simply about sealing a breach, but about buying time. The complexity of the network required extensive investigation. Specialists in engineering, structural integrity, and underground construction were brought in to assess the risk of collapse and to map the full extent of the passages. Ground-penetrating radar and drilling equipment became as critical as patrol vehicles and surveillance drones. The objective was not only to block existing tunnels, but to determine whether more remained hidden, waiting to be uncovered. The political implications were immediate. Leaders in Washington were forced to address the find as evidence of deeper systemic vulnerabilities. Calls for enhanced border security had often focused on physical walls and immigration policies. But the underground threat represented an entirely different challenge. A barrier above ground did nothing to prevent a passage that traveled unseen below it. Critics of existing strategies seized on this moment to argue for more investment in technology and intelligence. Rather than solely invisible structures, the shutdown thus became a symbol of the limits of current approaches, sparking fierce debates across the political spectrum. At the same time, humanitarian concerns surfaced. The tunnels may have been engineered with professional skill, but conditions inside revealed a harsh reality: narrow spaces, suffocating heat, and evidence of hurried passage painted a picture of desperation for those who had risked the underground routes. Discarded belongings told stories of journeys made in fear, with individuals forced to crawl through suffocating darkness for the chance at reaching the other side. The juxtaposition of sophisticated engineering with the human suffering it facilitated underscored the complex dynamics at play. The economic implications for Arizona were also significant. Border closures disrupted trade routes, delaying shipments and affecting industries reliant on cross-border exchange. Local businesses in towns like Angelos and Douglas, which depend on daily movement across the border, faced immediate strain. The shutdown was not just a law enforcement measure, but a disruption to the rhythms of life in the region, highlighting how deeply the border is intertwined with local economies. Beyond economics, the psychological impact was profound. For many Americans, the idea of hidden networks stretching beneath the homeland evokes images of infiltration and vulnerability. The find raised questions about what else might lie undiscovered and how prepared the nation truly is to confront unseen threats. The shutdown was both a practical measure to contain the immediate risk and a symbolic act to reassure the public that action was being taken. Yet the unease lingered as the full story of the underground discovery was still unfolding. As investigators dug deeper, both literally and figuratively, more details emerged about the sophistication of the system. Some chambers appeared designed not just for transit, but for storage, suggesting stockpiling of materials. Reinforced walls in certain sections indicated attempts to make the structures long. These findings pointed to intent far beyond temporary evasion and hinted at broader operations that might extend beyond Arizona, potentially connecting to networks in other border states. The discovery forced officials to consider whether similar hidden systems existed elsewhere undetected. The shutdown of the Arizona border was unprecedented, not just for its scale, but for its implications. It was a moment that revealed how threats evolve in ways that challenge traditional assumptions. While public attention often focuses on what can be seen, migrants crossing deserts, agents patrolling fences, this event reminded everyone that danger can emerge from what lies beneath. It was a stark lesson in adaptation, While officials built barriers above ground, others invested in going underground, exploiting the one dimension few had considered with sufficient seriousness. Every new revelation from the excavation site deepened the sense of alarm. The discovery of electrical systems suggested not only foresight, but also coordination with suppliers who could provide materials without raising suspicion. The presence of ventilation shafts revealed knowledge of how to sustain air quality in confined spaces. Even the architectural choices, angled passages, reinforced arches reflected expertise uncommon in improvised construction. Such details made clear that this was not the work of amateurs, but of groups with technical skill and resources. For border agents, the shutdown became both a logistical challenge and a symbolic reminder of the complexity of their mission. Their daily work often involves scanning vast stretches of desert, responding to visible movement, and intercepting attempts above ground. The revelation of a subterranean highway undermined much of that work, forcing a reevaluation of strategies and training. Suddenly, the desert landscape they thought they knew was layered with hidden dimensions.